Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and I am here with game number 1 between EmpireKas and mouzMana. I am totally stoked to be casting the game between these two players here. We are going to be having EmpireKas spawning as the blue Terran player down in the lower right hand corner here on Tal'Darim Altar. And on the top left here we have mouzMana spawning as the green Protoss. Yeah, not much more to say about that. They're just talking a little bit about the Home Story Cup here in the chat, if you haven't been paying attention to it. I've been trying, my biggest flaw in casting is trying to read everything that's going on in the chat while simultaneously trying to say stuff, and it just doesn't work out well for me. It doesn't work out well at all. So, I know that I just casted some mouzMana games fairly recently. Down here, EmpireKas, once again, obviously from the clan Empire. I believe they are a European clan, and I haven't seen much of Kas's play. I do believe that he's kind of a bio-play sort of Terran, and last time I saw him he was very drop aggressive. Now, that was quite a while ago. His style totally could have changed. But I do know that his clan mate Empire Happy is very popular, or maybe not so much popular. He's very well known for his Banshee builds versus Protoss. Now, seeing as we are on cross-spawn positions here on Tal'Darim Altar, I don't think Banshee play will be prevalent that much in this matchup. However, in one of our next, in either our next game or game 3, if there is one in this best of 3 series, it might be a little bit higher of a chance. Once again, this is a best of 3. I do not believe this is from any sort of tournament or anything. I believe the site that I downloaded these from just said that they were custom games, just on Battle.net, just because, which would also explain why we have blue and green and not red versus blue. So these games really mean nothing too much except a little bit of practice, and it looks like our scouting probe here is going to be intercepted by this Marine. It does not look like it's going to be able to get in. Oh my goodness, the probe actually did outrun the Marine there. It is going to be able to get into the base and see nothing because there is another Marine there to greet him. Now, we are... Oh, apparently Liquid Chef was observing this game here. We are seeing about a 19 or a 20 expand out of EmpireKas. A fast expand has been very popular for Terrans in TvP lately because it's been used to counter the Protoss' fast expand, which commonly comes either right after Gate or after Cyber. If Mana was going to fast expand, I would expect him to do it fairly soon here. About the 26-27 mark is when you want to lay that down. This SCV going to be kind of like the scouting probe, not going to get very far into the base, just enough to see the cybernetic score. And now I would definitely expect to see that expansion coming out of our Protoss player. And indeed, there are the minerals being saved up. There is the probe in place. We are going to be getting a 28 expand out of Mana. Once again, very popular. The 1 gate expand versus Terran, extremely potent. Generally, you'll only see 1 gas with that. Mana deciding to go 2 gas, just start banking up a little bit of extra gas. I guess I will allow for an extra early sentry or 2, or if he wants to go for some sort of fast tech play, he will also have the resources to do that. The main thing that you want to focus on, though, is just chrono boosting a lot of probes out. Meanwhile, down here we are seeing Kas go up to 3 racks and getting a 3rd command center. The purpose of this command center is just to build SCVs and mules, and once Kas is ready to expand, he just lifts it off and throws it on the low ground there. But this third command center does not necessarily indicate that he's going for a fast 3rd, just that he is going for a more economic build. Generally, you'll see this a lot more in TvZ. However, once again, it is obviously not unheard of whatsoever in PvT, as we are seeing it here right now. We are seeing Kas go for a little bit more bottled up play here, as we are seeing 2 bunkers rather than just that 1, which isn't too big of a deal, as you do have that salvage ability. However, a lot of the time you only see Terran players just in the 1 bunker on the high ground and just rely on Marines and Marauders to take care of the rest. Now, here's something I don't actually like. I like that Mana is taking the watchtowers. I do not like that he has a sentry alone at this watchtower, because a single Marauder with concussor shell could absolutely rip that apart, and sentry's obviously not a very cheap unit. Now, for Mana, over here, I do want to point out the very, very important fact that he's getting a robotics facility. Now, if you're doing a 1-gate expand as a Protoss player, the robotics facility is really a must off of, right pretty much as soon as you can to get this observer out, because there are very few builds in StarCraft 2 that you could consider a build order win, where if you use a certain build order, you will win the game. However, if a Protoss player does a 1-gate expand like Mana did, and then goes for a Twilight Council and a Templar Archive right afterward, if EmpireKas decides to do a 1-base Stargate play and get Cloaked Banshees, it is game over instantly for Mana. So, as a Protoss player doing a 1-gate expand versus Terran, always, always, always get this robotics facility, even if it is only for that observer. I guarantee you that will pay off. If you want to do Twilight Tech afterward or Stargate Tech afterward, feel free, but that robotics facility is so important in holding off any sort of push. Once again, we do have this command center just feeding SCVs into the base. We are seeing a factory just about to finish up here, as well as 2 tech labs and a reactor. We are getting double upgrades coming out of EmpireKas from these 2 tech labs, so I would expect to see some sort of timing push out of him. Now, it is important to note the order in which these upgrades are being taken. He is going Stim, then Combat Shields, and that is obviously because Stim takes so much longer. Once that finishes, he will probably get Concussive Shells, because let's be honest, it's 50-50. It is super cheap, and probably one of the best upgrades in the game. As far as Terran versus Protoss goes, it's kind of like Warp Gate Tech, and the fact that, you will always get Warp Gate Tech as a Protoss player. As a Terran player, 50-50, that is not expensive whatsoever. You may as well just get it. And actually floating his command center to the far third, but the natural third base all the way over here, just taking down those rocks with that force of Marine Marauders. So he will be taking a relatively quick third, and we actually see in the supply tab 103 to 78 supply quite heavily in the favor of our Terran player. And now Mana, using that observer, seeing that Kos was taking out these rocks, decides to drop an expansion of his own, and that is well on the way. Not really much of a harvester discrepancy, is slightly in the favor of EmpireKas because he got that third quick command center, which really is kind of bad for a Protoss player, as you really need to keep up with the harvester count, because mules, you're seeing Kos peak at over 2,000 mineral income every once in a while there, and the mules really make a difference in that. So income advantage, economy advantage goes a little bit to Kos's favor. It's not too much though. I wouldn't put too much of an emphasis on that at this point in the game. We do now have Chrono Boosted Colossus coming out, as well as something I personally love to do, and that is the Double Forge. This allows you to get upgrades out very quickly. And anytime you can get an upgrade advantage over your opponent, you're going to be sitting in good shape. We do have EmpireKas moving out across the field now. Looks like he is getting ready to do a little bit of a drop play. And yes, there we go, that medevac is creeping off to in another direction from the main army. So it looks like we were going to be seeing a double-pronged attack, but it looks like mouzMana may be moving out and may be able to catch this right now, though. And the small Bioforce is not going to deal very well against all these Colossus. With the Guardian Shield and a couple of forces. Misplaced forces, though, does allow the army to escape up into the third base. In the meantime, though, we are seeing a drop over in the natural expansion of two Zealous morphed in to deal with that. The Marine Marauder main force is now pushing into third base, taking out quite a few probes and evacuating over to meet up with the rest of the force. It looks like this drop is going to be cleaned up at the natural expansion. However, an overstimmed Marine Marauder force does come in and is just slaughtered by this Colossus. Will they get that Colossus? Yes, indeed, they do manage to take down the Colossus themselves. A very nice engagement, really, by both players. Both players doing a little bit of damage that they needed to do. Kos obviously just losing his entire army. Mana, with these two Colossus, was able just to fry away at the army, especially once it got overstimmed. That army was stimmed 2 or 3 times, which is never something you want to do as a Terran player. However, on the other hand, Kos got quite a few worker kills. Oh my goodness, a lot more than I'd even imagined. As we look in these tabs right here, that was 23 workers killed in that engagement. So, Mana sitting quite a bit behind in that count now. Definitely going to want to be chrono boosting out probes to try to catch back up, because you do not want to be sitting too far down in an economy. You don't want to be in an economy deficit too long. once again against a Terran player with mules. Now it looks like one Viking is going to take a couple free volleys from these Vikings, and it's not too big of a deal as no hull damage was taken. But if Mana does decide to engage soon, which it definitely looks like he is going to, then that Colossus is just going to be that little bit lower. We do have a couple of ghosts on the field. I do not know. No, we do not have Moby's reactor quite yet, so there will be no EMPs right out of the gate for those ghosts. However, Empire mouzMana is going to want to be very, very careful about that. And if I were him, I would definitely actually wait until this charge upgrades finishes. Indeed, that was just a little poke and prod from Mana, pushing in, taking out a single supply depot, realizing that he just does not have the forces to deal with this huge bio ball here, and decides to fall back to recoup his losses on his 3 bases of his own. Looks like we are seeing a 4th command center now coming out of EmpireKas, and a 5th even down here. So it looks like EmpireKas might be doing some sort of double expand here just to really try to punch out his lead. He definitely is ahead in this game, I'd say at this point, 191 to 134 supply. And even in the income tab, we see Kos almost 1,000 ahead in the mineral income and even in gas income. So definitely has the economy advantage in this game. And just to point another little thing out there, 76 to 61 harvesters. Mana is starting to look to be in a kind of a bad position. Charge is now finished, and we are also getting a Templar Archive. I really like this move, and I hope that we'll be seeing Storm come out of that, not just Archons, because obviously against a big bio ball, Storm, very, very potent. There are quite a few Colossus on the field here. I don't know if there's enough Stalkers to deal with that. However, most forces need to be focused on the small bio ball down here. That is a lot of units. Very nice forces cutting the army in half almost, but those Colossus are falling so quickly to this massive number of Vikings. And indeed, Mana, after doing a little bit of damage there, and having to fall back, and he lost everything in that battle, and Mana is looking to be in a very, very bad position at this point in time. EmpireKas already back up to 185 supply despite his losses here on the cliff line. It looks like he is EmpireKas is looking to push up into the 3rd base of Mana, and I don't really know if he has quite enough back to defend. We do have 2 Colossus, that would be very nice, as well as an Archon. Can't really afford, well, I guess he can afford to get that Storm, so he might want to start researching that if he's trying to push past this engagement. Once again, though, these Colossus falling so quickly to the Viking numbers, just the perfect number of Vikings to take that out as quickly as possible. And now we are having this bio ball just press straight in, pretty much unobstructed, into the 3rd base of Mana, and Mana has to evacuate his forces. I don't know if Mana can do anything to come back in this game at this point in time. It's almost better just to count losses and fall out of this game, because we are at a 100 supply discrepancy. EmpireKas already maxed out. A lot of his units just sitting down here at this little point, already taking his 4th base, gearing up to take his 5th with this extra orbital here as well. And now Kos is coming out, and a few Vikings being caught off guard. A little bit of cluster production is continuing on, so those Vikings do want to be spared, but we do have 2 more Vikings in production, as well as double medevac production. Upgrades are 3-3 for our Protoss player. Weapons level 3 on the way for our Terran player, but he has 2-2 right now. Looks like a little bit more of an engagement. Neither player can really afford to engage that army. Actually, I think EmpireKas definitely could have afforded to engage that army, as he already has a completely remacroed reinforcement army that was right behind it. However, deciding to fall back and just not lose those units. 4 High Templar now in the army, but without Storm, they aren't going to be able to do too terribly much. And I want to know who the observer in this game's opinion is. I do kind of appreciate it, because now EmpireKas has taken his 5th base at this point. And while Mana does scout this, there's really nothing he can do about it. He just does not have the forces to push out, and now we have a huge economy advantage. Well, still, I guess, in Kos's favor, never really leaving his favor. Storm is about halfway done, and I can really only see that as the last moment salvation for Mana to be able to try to win this game. We are at a 3-3 army to a 2-3 army right now. Both players fairly even in upgrade, so that really actually kind of hurts Mana, because he went that quick double forge and just was not quite able to exploit that. Even Terran ship weapons coming into play, and now we are having a couple of snipes and no EMPs actually, just ghost moving, and there's an EMP or 2 on the Archons, being very effective. Now the Viking suiciding into the army, trying to pick off those Colossus, not able to do too much damage, and now the ghosts, having done a little bit of sniping action, a little bit of cloaking action, do fall back into the main army, uncloaked. They were able to deny this 3rd, well, I guess deny the third again. And now Mana is just pushing out across the map. Once again, I don't really know if there's too much he can do here. Another engagement, and the Zealous will pop behind all of the Stalkers in that battle, though. And the Stalkers now taking a brunt of a blow from all the Marauders on the bottom of the map. And I don't really know if Mana can do anything to win this engagement. There's just so many Marauders on the field, which are just decimating his Stalker numbers. The Colossus, while there are two of them on the field, just isn't enough firepower. And indeed, there is the GG from mouzMana in game number 1. Just not able to really pull out of anything. At no point in that game would I say Mana had any sort of advantage, just kind of playing from behind, trying to claw his way from behind all game long. And I would just really quickly like to point out right here, look at that macro, actually really from both these players. I mean, at 21 minutes into the game to have this small of a bank after being maxed out in costs right multiple times, that is very, very impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me here on the EmpireKas. This was game number 1 between mouzMana and EmpireKas. Stick around because game number 2 will be coming up right after this. In the meantime, if you have not already, please, please, please go to coffeebreak.weebly.com. That is coffeebreak with a 0.weebly, WEEBLY.com. And you can sign up for the EmpireKas Open Tournament there. That is going to be a $15 prize pool, and that is going to take place on Friday, this coming Friday. So do that if you have not already. It is going to be a load of fun, and hey, who knows? You could come out 15 bucks richer for playing a video game all night. That's a win in my book. So, I will once again be coming back just a moment with game number 2 between these two players. But until then, this is Coffee Break, signing out.